Movements. Climb ignored Succulent as he tried the door and looked at Coco Doll. He guessed that Succulent would be hampered by the simple fact that he was here to protect Coco Doll. His guess was right. Succulent stopped trying the door and put himself between Climb and Coco Doll, clicking his tongue as he did. After that, he looked between Climb and the door, then looked back at Coco Doll, his face twisted. Damn, I fell for it. Sorry, but I have to kill this little punk here. What are you talking about? If we keep this kid alive, we can use him to blackmail that little bitch, can't we? He tricked me. It's all because he was guarding the door, so declaring he would hold the line was part of his plan. To think this punk would try to screw with my mind. Excellent. He took the bait. Looks like he doesn't know what's going on outside. Now they won't try to flee. Given that Coco Doll had only one bodyguard, trying to flee while Climb could still fight was a foolish course of action. This was because they might end up being flanked if Climb had colleagues on top of the stairs. That was also why Succulent could not let Coco Doll flee by himself until he had dealt with Climb. What rattled Succulent was the fact that Climb had loudly declared that he would defend the door, but he had then left it swiftly with the intention of attacking Coco Doll. Now, Succulent was sure that there were ambushers waiting outside the door, prepared to launch a pincer attack to capture Coco Doll. That certainty limited the tactical options he could consider. Right now, Succulent was probably thinking that he had to finish Climb off in order to escape safely. Of course, he was operating without knowledge of the conditions outside the door. Otherwise, he would have opened it and fled long ago. Climb had won this gamble, but he raised his sword in response to a sudden surge of killing intent. Exclamation point. Climb grit his teeth against the pain, which came from his side and his right upper arm. He might have broken several ribs, but fortunately he could still move. No, he would have been hacked to pieces by now if that pervert had not declared his desire for Climb's body. Even a chain shirt did not provide complete immunity to slashing attacks. Still, what was that weird move? Did he add another high-speed slash after his initial attack? Doesn't seem like it. Gazef's face flashed through Climb's mind. Gazef Stronov possessed a unique martial art, the six-fold slash of light, which allowed him to continuously attack a foe 6 times. Perhaps Succulent was using a weaker version of that, a two-fold slash of light? If that were the case, then Succulent was probably using some sinister martial art, where his first strike was made at normal speed, and then followed up by a lightning-fast second strike. Something's off here. If I can figure out that technique's secret, I should be able to deal with it. In any case, I'm at a disadvantage if I'm constantly on the defensive. Time to attack. Climb swallowed and began to run. His eyes shifted from Succulent to Coco Doll. Succulent's face twisted miserably. Given that he's a bodyguard, he probably doesn't want anyone to make a move on his charge, even if it's just a feint. I'd feel the same as him, so I understand him pretty well. Climb closed in as he tried to apply his own experience to his foe. An illusion devil. If that's true, then maybe that move's a trap in itself. However, it's worth making sure. He closed in and cleaved downwards. As expected, the strike was easily deflected. He fought against the rebounded impact and swung down again. The blow was weak because he had not brought the sword up, but that was enough. Succulent deflected the strike again. Climb nodded in satisfaction and pulled away. It's an illusion, not a martial art. He had felt something strange when his sword had been deflected. It was as though his strike had bounced away before it had even made contact with the sword he could see. Your right arm's an illusion. The real arm and sword are invisible. In other words, what he thought he had blocked was an illusion. It was the invisible sword which had struck him. Succulent's face went blank, and he calmly replied, correct. This is just a combination of an invisibility and an illusion spell. I've trained as an illusionist and a fencer. Once you figure it out, it's not much of a trick, is it? Laugh it up if you want. How could he laugh at that? It seemed simple in principle, and he did wonder why he had not figured it out earlier. However, an invisible blade was a true terror in a life-or-death battle, where every hit might be the last. The illusion that he could see only added to the deception. I suppose I'm below you in raw fighting ability, because I pursued two paths at once. However, Succulent's sword hand turned a full circle. But was that his real hand? For all he knew, he was watching an invisible arm, while the real hand had already taken out a dagger in preparation for a throw. Climb broke out in a cold sweat as he realized the fearsome power of illusions. Among the arcane magic caster vocations, illusionists can only use spells from the illusion school. Granted, some higher-tier spells can inflict damage so realistic that it can trick the brain into thinking it's dead, but I'm not that skilled. Sounds like a lie. There's no way to prove you're telling the truth. That's right, Succulent smiled. Still, you don't have to believe me either. Alright, I've said my piece. In any case, I can't enhance myself with spells, nor can I weaken you with magic. However, can you tell what is real, and what is merely illusion? Saying so, Succulent's body split apart into multiple images of himself, stacked one on top of the other. Multiple vision. The one in the center looked like the original, but Climb had no way to be sure. Damn it, I gave him time to prepare. Climb's aim was to stall for time, but it was too risky to allow a magic caster to enhance himself with spells. Climb shouted loudly, using a martial art to enhance his senses, and charged in at Succulent. Scintillating scotoma. Urg. Part of Climb's field of vision suddenly vanished. However, the spell's effect promptly ended. He must have resisted the magic. Climb stepped in and swung his sword in a grand, sweeping strike. Of course, only one of the succulents was within his reach. Moving close enough to get all the succulents in range of his swing would necessitate entering extremely close quarters, where he would not be able to bring his sword to bear. His sword hit one of the succulents, which split laterally in two. However, his foe did not spew blood, nor did the sword encounter any resistance as it passed straight through Succulent's body. You guessed wrong. A chill rose from his guts and his throat suddenly grew hot. Climb reflexively raised his left hand to grab the heated portion. Pain shot through the hand holding his throat and fresh blood spewed forth, bringing with it a disgusting sensation of wet clothing. Had he not sensed Succulent's murderous intent, or if he had not promptly sacrificed a hand to save himself, his throat would have been cut open. Though glad to still be alive, he grit his teeth and bit back the pain as he swept his sword once more. The blade met no resistance again, and the only thing it cut was the air. It would be bad if things continued like this. Climb realized this and decided to change martial arts. He decided to fall back while using evade. He could see the remaining two succulents raise their swords over their heads. Climb knew that the swords were illusions, and focused his attention on his hearing. The chain shirt he wore and even the beating of his own heart were meaningless noise. All he had to listen for was the sound made by the man before him. Not it, that's not it, this one. The sound did not come from the upraised swords coming down on him. The sound of something slicing through the air came from the empty space right in front of him, at his face. Climb hurriedly turned his head aside, and as he did, a line of heat blazed across his cheek, followed by the sensation of pain as his flesh split apart. A scalding hot liquid flowed down his cheek and over his neck. Half right. Climb spat the blood pooling in his mouth as he bet everything on his next attack. He had used his left hand as a shield, so now he could not feel anything except pain below his wrist. He did not know if his fingers could move. For all he knew, the nerves might have been severed. However, Climb wrapped his left hand around the hilt of his sword, in the hope of squeezing out just a bit more strength for his next blow. Pain exploded through Climb's body, and he grit his teeth. His left hand could still move, and it could still grasp his blade. It felt like it was swollen and throbbing, but he was probably imagining things because of the pain. With both hands on his sword's hilt, with all his might, he raised his sword to a high stance, and swung it down savagely. Blood spurted. There was the sensation of hitting something hard. Fresh blood spewed like a fountain. It would seem he had struck Succulent's real body. It would seem Climb's blow had been mortal, because he collapsed heavily to the ground. Climb could not believe that he had brought down a man on par with an adamantite-ranked adventurer, but it was an undeniable truth that Succulent was on the ground. Climb fought back the surging elation in his heart, and turned his gaze on Coco Doll. He did not look like he was going to flee. Perhaps he had relaxed mentally, but the pain from his cheek, his left arm, and the rest of his body made him nauseous. Can't really call this a victory. If he could have captured Succulent as well, he would have no complaints. However, that was too much to ask of Climb. Even so, capturing a man who was guarded by one of the 6 arms would probably yield a treasure trove of intelligence. Climb stepped forward, making to apprehend him. However, something about Coco Doll's face made him suspicious. The man seemed too relaxed. Why was he so relaxed? Just then, a burning sensation pierced his belly. He lost all strength in his body, like his strings had been cut. His vision blacked out for a moment, and by the time he came to, he was on the ground. He had no idea what was going on. The pain in his belly was like a red-hot bar of iron shoved into his flesh, and the pain was starting to spread. He panted heavily, and a pair of feet loomed into view of his eyes, which could only see the ground. Sorry about that, but I can't let you win. He struggled to look up, but all he saw was an unscathed Succulent. That was Fox sleep, by the way. It's an illusion used after taking a wound. It hurt like hell, mind you. You must have thought you'd finished me off, didn't you? He moved his finger, tracing a line down his chest. That must have been the path Climb's sword traveled, when it had hit him. Ha. 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 Climb panted and gasped. He could feel the blood pouring out of his abdomen, drenching his clothes and his chain shirt. I'm going to die. Climb scrabbled for the pieces of his consciousness, which had been rent asunder by the pain. If I pass out, I'll die. However, his death was certain, even if he did remain conscious. His opponent would probably finish him off soon. He had fought a man on par with an adamantite-ranked adventurer. It had been a heroic battle. Things being as they were, he had no choice but to give up. The difference in their abilities was far too great. That was simply how things were. However, he could not give up. He would not give up. Climb clenched his teeth like he was trying to shatter them in his mouth. He would not permit himself to die. He would not allow himself to lose his life without an order from Renner. Gay. Gay. His growl was somewhere between a moan and a gnashing of his teeth, in order to spur on his flagging spirit, which was on the verge of surrendering to the pain. He could not die. Not yet. Climb struggled to remember Renner. He still had to return to her side today. We're running short on time, so I'll put you out of your misery with this. Farewell. Succulent pointed his sword at the groaning youth. He had been fatally wounded. His death was only a matter of time. Still, Succulent had the feeling that it would be best to finish him off right now. Say, can we take him with us? Give me a break, Coco Doll-san. He might have friends behind that door, you know? Besides, even if we take him, he won't last until we reach safety. Just forget about him. Then, at least bring his head back. I want to put it in a bouquet and mail it to that fucking bitch. Fine. If it's just the head I can still, Yua. Succulent leapt back. The young man swung his sword. For someone on the verge of death, the strike had been steady and true. Succulent had originally looked down on his dying prey with arrogant eyes. Those eyes now opened wide. The boy had used his sword to prop himself up and gotten back on his feet. Impossible. Succulent had taken over 100 lives thus far, and he was certain that he had dealt the kid a mortal blow. There was no way he could still be standing after that. However, the sight before him flew in the face of Succulent's accumulated experience. Why can you get up? It was a bone-chilling sight. It was as though Climb were one of the undead. A long, thin trail of drool oozed from the corner of the boy's mouth, and his ashen white face seemed devoid of all humanity. I die. Renner-sama's kindness. His sudden intake of air froze in Succulent's lungs as Climb's burning gaze turned on him. He was afraid. He was frightened of how this young man had made the impossible possible. The young man staggered, and Succulent came to his senses. Shame suddenly welled up within him. How could he, as a member of 6 Arms, be afraid of someone weaker than him? How could he possibly accept that? Don't you know how to die? Go to hell. Succulent advanced toward his opponent. He was certain that a single stab would finish the job. Diamond suit, however, he had greatly underestimated his adversary. It was true that in terms of overall combat ability, Succulent was overwhelmingly superior to Climb. However, Succulent had chosen to walk the path of the illusionist and the fencer at the same time, while Climb had been a warrior all his life. Thus, in terms of martial ability, not only was there no disparity in strength, but one could even say that Climb was Succulent's superior. The only reason why Climb could not match Succulent was due to magic. Without the aid of spells to enhance him, Succulent was the inferior combatant. Diamond suit, there was a thrumming sound as the blade cleaved down from above, and then there was a high-pitched clash of metal. The only reason Succulent could block the boy's strike was because his movements were slowed from being on the verge of death. A rill of cold sweat ran down Succulent's face. His foe was dying. Succulent had been distracted by that fact, and his darkened eyes went wide. Succulent was a fencer, and he had trained for countless hours to evade his enemy's blows. The fact that he had to actually use his blade to block Climb's hit was quite extraordinary. That was not the attack of a dying man. Those words raced through Succulent's increasingly frantic mind. No, it was not just that. The speed of Climb's blade had been even faster than when he was unhurt. How the hell did you do that, you bastard? This was someone who became stronger through battle. It was not impossible, but Succulent had never witnessed anyone like that before. He even began to feel that the young man had thrown off some kind of limitation. What the hell did you do? Was it a magic item? A martial art? From his tone, one would be unable to tell who had come out victorious in their battle just now. Diamond suit, what exactly had happened to Climb? The answer was simple. Seba's training had scrambled the part of his brain that protected his body. His sheer will to live overlapped with the vision of death which Seba's training had shown him. Thus, he had managed to remove the limits placed on his physical body by his brain, unlocking the power of the adrenaline surge. While that training had only allowed Climb to make a single attack, without that training, he would have died without the chance to do anything at all. Diamond suit, after blocking that mighty blow, Succulent was thrown far back. The impact of his rough landing pierced through his back and churned his guts. While his orichalcum chain shirt absorbed some of the impact, it knocked the air from his lungs and left him unable to breathe for a moment. What had happened? Succulent, who had taken the blow, could not explain it, but Coco Doll had been watching from the side and had seen everything. Succulent had been kicked. The boy had promptly kicked Succulent right after his downward chop had been blocked. Succulent had no idea what was going on, but he hurriedly rose to his feet. For fencers, to whom mobility was their greatest asset, being prone on the ground was a death sentence. Damn it. What kind of a soldier are you? You even kicked me. Soldiers should stick to what they know and not try new tricks. Succulent cursed angrily as he rolled back into an upright position. Unlike the regimented combat curriculum of ordinary soldiers, Climb's down and dirty fighting style made Succulent feel like he was facing an adventure. Thus, he could not be underestimated. Succulent started to worry. At first, he had thought that the fight was his to lose. Killing a punk like this should have been a piece of cake. However, he now felt that composure slipping away from him. However, as Succulent stood up, he saw the young man who had become a threat slump to the ground, and he breathed a sigh of relief. The youth's face looked terrible, as though the series of blows had snuffed out the flame of his life. No, that was exactly what had happened. This must have been a last burst of fire, like how candles would flare up before going out. Yes, that must have been the power he had used. Right now, that boy would die from the merest tap. As he saw Climb's condition, Succulent began to feel relieved, but that was soon replaced by confusion and anger. He was furious at the fact that someone like him, a member of 6 Arms, had been so hard-pressed by a miserable little mook like Climb. He was angry at the fact that he had started to panic. Still, the victor was clear. All he had to do was kill the kid and run. However, don't you think you've done enough? Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. It would seem he had made it in time, somehow. Climb was face down on the ground, his face covered in sweat, his skin so pale that it was practically white. Still, he was breathing. That said, the wound on his belly was fatal, and he would die within a few minutes if it was not immediately treated. Brain felt that he could not relax yet as he entered the room. There were 2 men inside. One of them did not look like a fighter. Don't pay any attention to that suspicious-looking guy, just kill him. If I do that, he'll charge up and kill me. This guy isn't like the punk from just now. I need to focus and concentrate to beat him. If I'm distracted or get careless, it'll be the end of me. The person who answered was Succulent. Brain knew exactly who the man was. He looked just like the description that had been supplied to him. Plus, the man was holding a blood-stained blade, and he had a body double out. Brain had suspected him from the beginning, and his suspicions had just been confirmed. Without another word, Brain ran up, drew and slashed. There was no hesitation in his movements. Succulent had leapt away even before the blow had landed, and the katana only struck empty air. However, Brain had only done so to get his opponent away from Climb. He stood over the fallen Climb, planting his feet in a location where he could cover the lad. Climb, are you all right? Do you have any healing items on you? His words were quick and tense. If Climb did not have anything like that, he would have to find some other way to save him. Ha. 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 Yes, I do. He glanced over and saw that Climb's hands had released his sword and begun to move. Really now? A great weight lifted off Brain's shoulders. After answering Climb, he glared fiercely at Succulent. I'll take you on next. Allow me to avenge that kid. You're pretty cocky. But that's only to be expected. To think you'd be carrying such a valuable weapon from the south. I don't think I've heard of anyone like you before. Mind telling me your name? He did not intend to answer. Climb was a comrade, a brother in arms. How could anyone reply calmly when one's brother was on the brink of death? Just then, a doubt blossomed in Brain's heart. Was I like that in the past? His old self had lived for nothing other than honing his swordplay. When had he cared about anything else? Then he chuckled to himself. Oh. I get it now. His ambition, his dream, his goal, his life, his way of living, all of them had been shattered beyond recovery by the monster called Shaltir Bloodfallen, and the cracks in his heart which had appeared had then been filled by the person called Climb. When faced with the vicious bloodlust from the mysterious Sabas, Brain had been driven to his knees, but Climb, though weaker than him, had endured through it. It was then, when Brain was filled with admiration, that Climb had worked his way into Brain's heart. That was because Brain had seen a spark of manly radiance within Climb that he himself had lacked. He stood before Climb, locking eyes with Succulent. Did Climb now see in Brain's back the same determination that Brain had seen in Climb's? His old self would have laughed at this. His old self would have laughed at how weak he had become. In the past, he had believed that these things were nothing more than weaknesses to a warrior. He had believed that all a warrior needed was to be as sharp as a sword. However, he understood now. So that was how you viewed life. I see, Gazef. It seems that even now, I'm still no match for you. Didn't you hear me? I'm asking you again, could you tell me your name? Forgive me. While I feel there's no point in telling you, well, I am Brain Unglaus. Succulent's eyes widened into saucers. What? You mean that?
No way. The man himself. Are you kidding me? No, don't think it's a mistake, Kou Dolsan. Valuable weapons in the Keita warriors level. A katana like that certainly suits someone like him. Ara I green crossed brain's face. More than half the people I've recognized me, well, my old self would have been proud. Right now, it's a little more complicated. Brain had no idea why Sakialan was smiling at him so companionably. However, his doubts were soon answered. I say, Unglaus. There is no point in us fighting, is there? Someone strong like you is worthy of joining up. Why not become one of us? You could easily become a member of Six Arms with strength like yours. It's plainly obvious how skilled you are. You reuse like me, aren't you? You want to become strong. I can tell by looking in your eyes. You do habitat that. Right. Then let me tell you. Eight Fingers is a pretty good place. It's great for those who are strong. They give you all the magic items you want, as powerful as you like. Look at this original chain shirt. This mithril sword. These rings. These clothes. These boots. They all magic items. Come, Brain Unglaus. Join us. Join the Six Arms. Worthless. Is that all there is to your organization? Brain's unimaginably cold and contemptuous attitude froze the smile on Succulent's face. Say what? Didn't you hear me? I said, if that's all there is to you, you won't amount to anything even if you band together. You, well, if you say that, then your strength's nothing special either. Indeed. Someone like me is nothing special. I learned that very well after witnessing a true monster. Brain pitied Sakialant and his haughty attitude. It truly was like a frog in a well. Thus, Brain decided to give him a sincere warning. It's the same with your strength. Perhaps very the same way. That's why I want to warn you, very nothing special. Brain turned back and glanced over his shoulder at Climb, who had drank his healing potion. Also, I've learned one more thing. Strength gained for someone is greater than what a person can train up by themselves. Brain smiled. It was a kind, carefree smile. Perhaps it's only a little, but in the end, I do understand. I have no idea what you're talking about. What a shame, Unglaus. What a shame that I have to kill a genius swordsman who wants to compare with the mighty Gazef Stronov. Can you do it, with that sword which you only swing for yourself? Of course I can kill you. That's easy enough. And after I kill you, I kill that brat on the ground. No more holding back, and no more games. I am going all out. As Brain watched Sakialant begin an incantation, he sensed someone moving behind him and issued a warning. Climb-kun, don't move. You're not fully recovered yet, are you? Climb froze. Brain smiled.